Hello everyone. Today on Scottish Memories we are talking to actor Gordon Kennedy. I hope you're all safe and happy and healthy out there. Today's guest on Scottish Memories is actor Gordon Kennedy. Gordon has been acting for over 30 years and has appeared in some incredibly iconic TV series. He was in Scottish sketch show Absolutely. He's been in The Bill, River City. He was in Red Dwarf, launched the National Lottery with Anthea Turner, played Little John in BBC series Robin Hood, was in Sherlock with Benedict Cumberbatch, Harlots with Liv Tyler, to name just a few. Gordon, how are you?
I'm very well. I'm just quite tired just listening to that CV. That's quite tiring.
That's just the highlights. I mean, when I was looking at it,
Yes.
how
Let's not
proud
let's
was
not
I?
let's not let's not delve into the lowlights. That's a good idea.
I have to say, before we get properly into it, absolutely, when that was on TV, the sketch show, I was in school at the time, and every day after an episode, we were all wandering about going, Stonybridge Community Council.
I'm very pleased to hear it. We were doing exactly the same thing, actually. We weren't in the playground, obviously. We were just in the pub, but we would do the same thing. So that's very good.
So just when we're getting started, you live down south now.
Yes, I live in London now. Yeah.
How often do you get a chance to come back up?
Well, obviously at the moment not very much, but
No.
it sort of depends. I mean, there's a lot of time. Obviously, I've worked a lot in Scotland doing various shows and also producing radio stuff up there. So I do go up and down quite a lot. Both my brothers live in Scotland, one in Dumfries and one in Edinburgh. So I visit them quite a lot as well. So I do get up there quite a lot. And obviously, given what I've done and where I started, I do go back to the festival, the Fringe, quite a lot as well. So and it was lovely a few years ago bringing my teenage sons up to Edinburgh and sort of introducing them to where I started, but also they were leading me to show me some of the newer kind of comedians on the circuit, and it was brilliant.
It's going to be a miss this year, actually, because the Fringe has been cancelled this year.
Yeah. I mean, funnily enough, we were thinking at one point about maybe coming up to do, because we do Absolutely the sketch show. We do that on radio now,
Yeah.
and we've done about 4 series. Not with Jack Doherty. He does his own thing, but we were thinking of coming up and doing a show this year, but then it was all cancelled before we got that far. But it would been quite good fun to do a live show again. But the Fringe was cancelled, so that was that.
That's a real shame. I can guarantee you
Yeah.
would have been there.
Yeah, no, it would have been great fun, and obviously, you know, my acting career started there, so that's why it's important to me.
So you grew up just outside Edinburgh.
I did. I grew up in Tranent, which is in East Lothian. It's um, about 10, 12 miles from Edinburgh. But I
Yeah.
went to school in Edinburgh. And my dad was a doctor, a GP in East Lothian. So I went to school in Edinburgh. So I kind of, all my friends were in Edinburgh mainly. So
So what were your sort of haunts when you were younger, around about town? Was there?
well, I went to an all boys school. So obviously by the time I was a teenager, there was a fairly urgent need to meet girls. But funnily enough, it was all interrelated with what I ended up doing, because we all joined a youth fellowship fairly close to our school, which is associated with Greenbank Church, which is up in sort of Burntsfield, Morningside area. And there was girls there, which was an extraordinary discovery. But also every year they would do an annual sort of charity show for charity at Christmas time, it's sort of early January at the Churchill Theatre, which is just in Morningside. And so we all started really at quite a young age performing and writing, and then eventually directing the show and producing the show when we became more experienced. But that was really where the first sort of seeds of getting on stage and making people laugh, which is what I did initially, sort of came from, which was fantastic. I mean, it was just such a brilliant thing to do. As I say, it was in amongst this church and this youth fellowship, but it was mainly gags rather than God.
That's actually quite a coincidence, because the Churchill Theatre, I went to drama school in London. I went to Mountview, in London.
All right, yeah.
And my first ever time on stage properly doing a show was the Churchill Theatre as well.
Well, yeah. I'm sure that's for a lot of people in Edinburgh, because it's sort of a place where you can where there's professional shows, but there's amateur shows as well, because it's like it's run by the region, and it's a 300-seat theatre, so it's a great size.
It's a beautiful little theatre, actually. It's a lovely little
Yeah. No, it's fantastic. And bizarrely, I was talking to some people just last week on Zoom, and they'd found all these photographs of us doing this show, which was extraordinary. Some of the really non-PC comedy we used to do back in the 1970s. So I certainly can't go into that. But it was just really interesting to look at it, and it was just such great fun to do, because and it sort of aroused a bit of a creative spirit. And then living as a sort of teenager in Edinburgh at that time, because it was before Parliament and all that stuff had happened. So Edinburgh was quite a staid place. It was sort of, it was a nice place, but it was quite quiet. It didn't, Glasgow was where all the glamour and the fighting and the drinking happened. Edinburgh seemed to be a bit quieter than that. And then for 1 month of the year, in sort of September, in August, it sort of turned into Rio de Janeiro, and there was sort of naked women dancing in the streets and shows and just the weirdest and wonderfulest things. So as a kid growing up in Edinburgh, you suddenly saw this as a 17-year-old, you think, yeah, no, I want to be a part of that, as well as everything else that I do. I played rugby and all that sort of stuff, but I said, no, I really want to do that. And there was some like-minded people in our school that felt the same way, so we started doing a show in the Fringe, which was great fun.
So the Fringe has obviously had a big impact, a big influence on you then, really.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I would have been an actor had I not lived in Edinburgh and had this sort of draw. I mean, I'm slightly joking about but I remember going to see the most amazing shows, and even in those days, it was people, especially in comedy, it was people straight off the television. They were in a church hall somewhere, and you could watch them live. And I remember being really influenced by that, and also the idea that anyone could have a go. It didn't matter what you, as long as you paid your money, paid your rent, and you could do the show, as long as you weren't doing anything illegal, which by and large we weren't. You could do whatever you wanted. So we started out, and of course, because we came from Edinburgh, we never had the perennial problem of every newcomer to Edinburgh, which is to get an audience. We sold out. Yeah. I mean, I remember in our first year, the Perrier, which is the comedy awards people, they look at comedy shows that are sold out, and they think, oh, we better go and see them. And I remember meeting them years later, and they just could not understand why the show was sold. They all went to see it and said, "Did you see? Yeah, terrible, isn't it? Yeah, terrible. Why was it sold out?" And they didn't quite make the connection that we were local. It was just our friends were there, loving it. I mean, they all laughed, but I mean, the John Lloyds of this world, sort of slightly more circumspect about our terrible comedy. So, we started off, and I don't think we were very good to start with, but then we did get better. So
just got images of all these sort of judges going, I don't get this Edinburgh humour. What's going on?
No, absolutely. I mean, there's a woman now who owns half the West End theatres called Nika Burns, who ran the Perrier Award, and when we were eventually nominated, about four years later, we were shortlisted for the Perrier Award on merit, quite rightly, because by that stage we'd got a bit better at what we were doing. And she introduced me to this journalist from The Spectator who said, "No, I saw you in 1980, Gordon, and I didn't have the heart to publish my review." So it was so awful. She suddenly thought, "I can't do this. It's just the first time. I can't actually." So I never saw it. I didn't even ask her for it. But so we were saved from the ravages of the press to start with. But then by the time
it happened nowadays, that a reviewer would go, "Oh, I can't do that to them."
Yeah, no, I don't think it would have. And then hilariously, once we did get much better at what we were doing, there was one or two Scottish journalists took it upon themselves to start slagging us off, which is the classic sort of Scottish thing, because we'd committed the cardinal sin at being good, and then going down to London to do the show, and that was seen as high treason. So one or two of them turned against us a bit towards the end. But it did lead to us going down to London to do the sort of the pick of the Fringe shows, and that just opened our eyes. And once we were down there, we didn't want to come back, because at that time the centre of comedy and television and everything really was very London centric. It's not the same now, but it was then. And there was, a naked video and all that stuff was going on up in Scotland. But Colin Gilbert, who produced that show, said to us, "Look, I can't do anything. I think you're great, but I can't do anything with you. The best thing you can do, the best chance you have, is to go to London." And we did. And then we were on Channel 4 when Naked Video was on BBC Two. So there was two, and they were very different, but they were both good sketch shows. But they were both actually had come out of Scotland.
Yeah, yeah. So now that you're down there, and obviously
Yeah.
like you're back and forth and things quite a lot, when you're talking to colleagues and they're maybe coming up for the first time, what sort of places do you say you've got to go there, try this here, or go see this, or?
Okay. Well, the one place we have to I take people to if they haven't been before is the Canny Mans.
All right. Okay.
Because it was a place I kind of grew up in a way. It's very near where my brother lives, and it's just the best pub in the world. It's got the grumpiest owner, and but it's got great beer and great food, and it's sort of what a pub always was. But it's in a way it's almost quite modern as well, because it's just welcoming. It's just that brilliant, warm, and it's got the weirdest stuff up on the walls and in the ceiling. It's stuff that I remember hanging up there when I was 18 years old, going in for my first beer in there. So I think it's a very special place, and I love going in there. So I always take people
you
there.
see pubs nowadays where they've tried to create that sort of older look.
Yeah.
Where you go in and they've built a shelf high up and they've put random things on there, and you're like, you've just went to a charity shop and bought that, and it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's it's still got a tattered school blazer from my local school, because it was a tradition that when your last day at school, we always went to the Canny Mans at lunchtime, and we were all 18 by then, so it was all perfectly fine. And there's still a blazer hanging up, and I'm pretty sure one of us put it up there about 45 years ago, and nobody's had the heart to take it down. So because that sort of thing is quite important. So yeah, so in terms of pubs, that's a place I took my youngest son got married to a Canadian last year, and they came over for a party over here, and we met up with them in Edinburgh, and we took them to the Canny Mans, and they just couldn't believe a place like that existed. It was just hilarious, because he kept just drinking and then sort of spitting out the drink because he saw something else equally weird up in the walls and stuff. So it was great. So yes,
there is a lovely, strong bond between a lot of Canadians and Scottish actors. There's a lot of expats in Canada. So whenever I've met Canadians, there does seem to be a nice sort of commonality, I suppose, for lack of a better
word. No, completely. And also they just want to drink in that history and culture of Scotland. And of course Edinburgh, and in particular when you go up to the Royal Mile and the castle, you almost don't have to hear a tour guide. It's just you just breathe it in, because it's all there. I mean, it's like an epicenter for sort of schlock and horror with the Body Snatchers and Mary Shelley, and and all the stories that abound about all that sort of stuff. But also it's the castle, the battles, the mound, the Adams, all that stuff that people have read about. It's all there, and it's relatively compact. You don't have to run around all over the place, which is quite nice in a way. And I think I do always say to people when they're coming up, they should do those tourist things, because they are touristy. If you go early in the morning, they're not too busy, but they are absolutely worth every penny. Because in that same trip, we did a tour of the castle, and I hadn't been to the castle since I was a wee boy, and it was fantastic just to see it all again, and the history of it, and the tiny little church which has been there since sort of the 12th century or something, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, and I think I think you're right. I think the expats, Americans and Canadians, they really do just want to sort of absorb it when they come into.
Which is nice. It's a lovely. We're very lucky with this sort of channel where I get people who are just like, "Oh, my grand came from here, and you just showed it," or "Oh, it's lovely when you hear all that sort of thing," and they really do keep it in their heart, which is lovely.
Yeah, and on a clear day, Edinburgh Castle is a great place just to look at you get the lie of the land. So you're looking out to the Forth Bridges, and you're looking out towards East Lothian and all the beaches. And it's the day we went up there, you could just spot everything, which was just it was fantastic. So I think that's great. My other I've got two other real sort of secret passions about Edinburgh. One of them is Leith. I love Leith. I think it always had a slight draw for me, and I don't quite know why that. I think it was partly because I used to work a bit in haulage when I was just a student and doing summer jobs and stuff like that. I used to go down to Leith all the time, and it just felt a bit, in those days, it felt a bit more edgy than the rest of Edinburgh, where the centre of Edinburgh felt very safe. It's not that there wasn't unsafe places in Edinburgh to be, but Leith just felt a little bit more, because it's a port and there's people coming in and there's stuff going on, there's a wee bit of smuggling and all that, and there's Malmaison, which was a real Malmaison then, you know, and all that sort of stuff. I loved going down there. And now, now it's beautiful, and it's also got brilliant, you know, restaurants and pubs and stuff like that. And the other places,
Leithers as well, they've got a real, almost a sense of community in themselves. You know, Leithers.
Yeah.
I'm a Leither, not Edinburgh.
Yeah. I remember that the foreman I used to work with at this haulage company was from Leith, and it was the first time I'd ever encountered that. I always, you know, being classically, you know, middle class doctor's son, you know, Edinburgh was Edinburgh, Leith was just part of it, and he very correctly put me right, and then took me to the Boundary Bar and showed me the boundary in the middle of the bar, you know, that copper line that goes down it, which I thought was hilarious. Yeah, so I love Leith, and Portobello Beach is the other place that I kind of all the beaches along there, right from Portobello, Port Seton, you know, right the way along towards Gullen and North Berwick. There's loads of beaches that are where I spent my childhood kicking a ball about with my brothers, and but Portobello sort of reinvented itself when they suddenly got the beach redone, and now it's great, and it's a really nice place to be. There's a lot of
now, it really is.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you were the same. When I was young, my dad used to always, because when the shows were there, you know, when the
yes,
I should say as well, Grant Stock mentioned this last week as well, and I realised that afterwards we both said the shows. When outside of Scotland, is like, I should say that's a fun fair.
yes, the merry-go-rounds and dodgems.
Yes, yeah. I was like, no, we'll know what the shows are after I did it. But it was a proper draw, you know, those sort of places.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Going down.
They used to, because the Portobello one was where the big shows were, and then because I remember even in Trinent they used to do they must have sort of divided up and sort of gone to the smaller places, because I remember in the old flapping track, the Greyhound track in Trinent, which used to be where Trinent juniors used to play football. They used to put a fair on there for a couple of weeks after it had been in Portobello for the main. I think it was the Trades Fortnight or something it was there for. But, yeah, so Portobello Beach, I completely love, and obviously East Lothian, which is nearby, is beautiful and very, very different from the rest of the
birthplace of the saltire itself, really, you know.
Indeed.
So top tips for anyone wanting to visit?
Okay, my top tips is to come to Edinburgh and at festival time, because I know it's very busy and it's a bit more expensive, but it's great to see a bit. I mean, this is sort of a Scottish thing. I think people go there for a week and then, you know, get out of the town and go way up to the Highlands or whatever. But if you're just coming to Edinburgh, I think spring and autumn are the nicest times to come, because it's a bit quieter. You'll get every sort of weather within half an hour of each other. And I think it's just beautiful with the especially in the autumn, the meadows with the leaves just changing colours and stuff like that. And that's the thing about Edinburgh that a lot of people don't quite realise, because the centre of it does feel very compressed. It's just how green Edinburgh is when you walk. You can walk through the meadows and you're right in the middle of town. You know, you can go through the other way. You go through Princess Street Gardens. It's right in the middle of the city, and it's this little green oasis. And it is. I think it's a fantastic city to walk around the middle of, because it's not. I mean, apart from the hill going up to the castle, everything else is all very close and beautiful to kind of look at. Which is good.
It's funny you mentioned that as well, because I think I've mentioned that before. Don't you remember Billy Connolly did a world tour of Scotland about 20 years ago on TV? And I always remember when he did his episode in Edinburgh, he was in the castle, and it went from rain into a rainbow to beautiful sunshine. And the period that he'd been there filming, he just turned around to the camera and goes, "Come to Scotland. You don't like the weather? Hang on for half an hour. It'll be completely different."
No, absolutely. That is it. You're absolutely right. I think the only other, my other treasure of Edinburgh is Murrayfield. I played a lot of rugby when I was younger, and I had the great privilege to be a ball boy there one year.
Wow.
Which was extraordinary. Scotland-France game. That was it. So walking out the tunnel beside because you used to do that as you're a ball boy, you used to walk out beside the teams. So there was just these giants because I was 9 or 10 years old, and then I had the great fortune to watch my brother playing for Scotland when they won their first post-war Grand Slam in 1984. So I was there when he scored a try against England. So that is a very memorable part of it.
Yeah, that's a moment there, really, isn't it?
Yeah. No, it was, and then when they won the second Grand Slam in 1990 with Gavin Hastings, I was sitting beside him in the stand with all the other people that had won the Grand Slam the year that they'd won it. So it was, it's a very special place for me, Murrayfield. It's my sporting shrine, if you like.
I was a rugby player. I was a wing forward back in the day.
Yeah.
But I was never lucky enough to play Murrayfield, obviously. And a few years ago, I did a race. I did a charity thing around Edinburgh, a run. And the reason I did it, the big draw, was it finished at Murrayfield. That was the finish line. But I didn't realise that they had us running all around town. Then we come to Murrayfield, and then we come in one of the sides in Murrayfield, and there's a track, beside.
Yeah. It was the sprinting bit. Yeah.
And the finish line was right in the middle, and we ran in, and we got in, and we got to the finish line. I was like, "Oh, great!" And I thought, "Oh, I'm going to stand on the pitch and just take it in for a second." And they're like, keep moving, out you go. And I was like, "Oh, okay." Yeah,
no. Because I've been there a couple of times with you, and the groundsmen are furiously grumpy all the time. It's literally the hallowed turf. You're not allowed to. The only people that are allowed to walk on that turf are the rugby players and the officials, and the band, obviously, under suffrage to play the national anthems. It's hilarious. But it's a very special place, especially at night. They do these autumn internationals now, and I love going there to watch them. It's because when they do Flower of Scotland at night, they have a piper standing on top of one of the roofs of one of the stand, and there's a spotlight that goes up to him, and it's just sensational. It's a bit like the tattoo when they end the tattoo with the piper, which again is very touristy, but amazing if you haven't seen it before. I mean, it's an extraordinary kind of place.
I had two thoughts come into my head at the same time when you said that there. One, I was like, that is one brave man to stand up there and do it. Two, I was like, I hope he's, far enough for if he's wearing a kilt, no one's going to get a view.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the time I've been going, he would have had to been very well endowed to see anything because he's but also it wasn't too windy. But yes, I don't know what they do if it's very windy. I bet you they've got weights they can put.
Good weights to lock your kilt there.
Lead weights. You can't walk. You start walking, you're going to be in big trouble. But you're all right if you're standing still. But no, it's which is quite specific. But then that was another time of year I remember when I was growing up, and still remember is the weekend of internationals in Edinburgh, because it is, for people that like sport, rugby is quite a weird sport in the sense that there is total integration and indeed camaraderie between the supporters.
Yeah.
You sort of, I know having been, all over the place at internationals. You go to Cardiff, Arms Park, Turkey, whatever it is, and there is this fierce rivalry, but also there's a real camaraderie and a mutual excitement before the games, and then after the games, there's a lot of arms around the shoulders, either triumphantly or commiserating or indeed being commiserated. Which is very unique to the sport, probably even unique to the home internationals.
No,
but I mean, it's a fantastic thing.
It's one of the few times that I have been to Murrayfield to see a game. What I've always enjoyed afterwards is actually, apart from loving watching the match itself, leaving, like the whole crowd, just the traffic has to stop. And you walk out, everyone's in the middle of the road, both supporters together walking out. We're all going, pubs are that way, come on.
Yeah, and talking to each other. Everyone's excited about what they've just seen, so they're talking about it. I had the great privilege to meet. I've been doing a bit of work with them just through a charity I work a lot with down in England called the Lord's Taverners, and one of the leading lights of it is John Taylor, who was a wing forward who famously put a conversion over from the corner in the last minute when it was the biggest crowd Murrayfield ever had, because afterwards they closed Murrayfield because it was dangerous. There was about 115,000 there, and I remember watching it, and it was the last kick of the game, and he broke the nation's hearts, and it was very funny because I met him and he introduced himself to me, and I said, "It's very nice to meet you," and then I just sort of raised my mouth, and before I said anything, he said, I know, I broke your heart. I'm sorry." It's just, things like these memories. And this is from God, I must have been 15 at the time, but he knew exactly what I was about to say because he could tell from my accent, which was very funny. But anyway, so that's a very special place as well.
I actually don't know if Murrayfield just does. I'll have to check if they just do, tours where you can just go and because if it is, it's definitely a place people should go visit.
Yeah, no, I think they do. I'm pretty sure they do. I can't remember. I think they do, especially in the summertime. There's stuff to see now, especially around the stand with it, all the different things. But yeah, no, that'd be well worth.
Yeah. I've got a couple of short, they're not quick fire, they're more first reaction sort of questions. Okay. Yeah? Shortbread or tablet?
Tablet.
Tablet?
Tablet, are you mad? Yes.
Is it the sugar rush? Is that what you like?
Yes. It's worse for you, apart from anything else.
Yeah.
If they could put all the butter and shortbread in the tablet, then it would be even better.
I did try to make tablet a little while ago, and it just ended up soup. But I think I ate it anyway.
Tablet soup is not a bad idea. Perhaps as a dessert rather than a starter. But anyway.
Iron beer or whiskey?
Whiskey.
Whiskey.
Yeah, every time. I like a malt, not a blend. I don't like blends, but I do like malt whiskey.
Just a single malt.
Yeah.
We've got. I don't know if you know this, but the first whiskey distillery in Edinburgh has just opened up last year for the first time in 100 years.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Holyrood Distillery. They're making gin and whiskey.
All right, okay.
They're making gin right now because gin, they can do straight away, and they have been making whiskey, but it won't be ready for the first batch. Won't be ready for 3 years.
That's the difficult thing with a business plan for somebody wanting to make a business plan out of making whiskey is yes, you've got to invest in us for 8 years before you get anything back. But,
but it's nice to have a whiskey distillery back in the centre.
That's amazing. Yeah. Because presumably it was there back in the day. I mean, way back in time.
No, this one's brand new. It's been brought from.
All right.
It's just up. It's just up past the Pleasant, just a little bit further up. It's an old.
All right.
It's an old mining train station building where they used to bring coal in back and forth from Dublin.
Yeah. Cycle through. There's a tunnel through the park that's that part of that.
Yeah.
Because of course there's Glenkinchie Distillery in Pencaitland, which is not that far from Edinburgh, so that's one of my favourites as well, and that's not too far.
This might be an obvious one, but Edinburgh or Glasgow?
Edinburgh. Although I have to say I spent 4 years as a student in Glasgow, and I loved it because they are so entirely different. I mean, the towns are 36 miles apart, but they could not mean everything. Climate, culture, just the works is so different. And I loved my time in Glasgow, so I feel a little bit. If somebody was interviewing me from Glasgow, I may well have said Glasgow, but I mean, I do like Edinburgh better, but it's not as polarized as maybe it might be for other people.
No, I mean, I'm kind of the same as you. I'm in Glasgow quite a lot just for various reasons. And I know there's a bit of a rivalry there, but I think I'm in the minority. People of Edinburgh are just like, yeah, I like Glasgow. And Glaswegians are hysterical.
I love it. I mean, my first experience of Glasgow was going to a Status Quo concert and they used to do it, I can't remember where, but they recorded their live album there because it was such a massive response they used to get. And going into the pub next door to Glasgow Queen Street Station, I mean, aged about 16. And, we got pints, somebody got served. And I remember just saying, this guy came out and said, "Oh, what are you off to, boys?" And I said, "Oh, we're going to this concert and stuff like that." And he said, "Oh, that's great, that's great." And then we went back chatting, and then we were about to leave, and the boy came over and he'd got a plastic bag, and it was full of crisps. And he just said, "That's for you boys. You have a good night, and just some tea, just in case you don't want to get drunk on an empty stomach." I mean, complete stranger. And that was my first experience of being at Glasgow as a teenager. So I kind of thought, yeah, that probably wouldn't have happened in Edinburgh. I don't know.
No,
Anyway, it was
no.
might have happened in Leith, but maybe not in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
But it was, yeah. So I've got a lot of fondness for Glasgow, but Edinburgh is where I'm from, so I have to say Edinburgh's my favourite.
This is where it gets harder. Haggis, neeps and tatties or mince and tatties?
Haggis, neeps and tatties.
Yeah?
Not hard for me. No, yeah. Haggis, and it's got to be McSween's.
Oh, I do like, yeah. Yeah.
I organised a Burns night down at my local school here in London, in Queen's Park in London, and I said I would love to do it, but I can only do it if we get McSween's haggis. And I went and I found that Smithfield Market, which is the big meat market in London, I used to go down there at 5 o'clock in the morning, and there was all these butcher shops, and around Burns night they all had McSween's haggis. For the catering trade, so like Harrods, for going to Harrods, going to the Ritz, going to all these places at Burns night time, they all had McSween's haggis. So I could go in there and I could get as much as I wanted. There was no problem. Right. And they had a big one for the display, and then catering ones to serve out. It was fantastic. It was such a revelation. It was just brilliant because I thought, they won't have McSween. They'll probably just have some English haggis or something. Yeah. But it was McSween's, so that was very good.
Tunnock's tea cakes or Tunnock's caramel wafers?
It's a dead heat. I love them both.
Yeah,
yeah. Now, the interesting thing about Tunnock's is that I would command, if the listeners that get the show Vera, you know Vera, the Brenda Blethyn, the detective show. I did one of their shows about 2 years ago. They filmed it up in Newcastle, and we did a scene in the office, but the other part of the office was like a green room, so I was just waiting there for the thing to set up. And I was looking around, it was where all the detectives had their desk, and I was looking around, and every workstation had like a Tunnock's tea cake or a Tunnock's caramel log or both or whatever, and they were all around, and I kept going, what's going on? Why are there all these? And they said, they found out that Brenda really liked Tunnock's tea cakes, so they just send us lots of free stuff, so we just are always eating it in the thing, and that's the deal. But I bet you it's on camera. You watch, you will see when they're in the police offices, unless they've had a crackdown. And there's no. The best thing about it is that it's not like commercial product placement. There's no deal being done here. It's just that they send to Brenda because they know that she likes them, and then she just chucks them liberally around the set. Mm-hmm. But it was the weirdest thing to be in Newcastle and seeing all these Tunnock's things going, what is going on? Very good.
Last one, Lucas or Derolo?
Well, I mean, I'm from East Lothian. It can only be Lucas.
Yeah.
I mean, Lucas is, and why the Nardini family thought they could come into Edinburgh and start selling ice cream, I don't know. That's just nonsense. No, it's Lucas.
Proper spot in everyone's heart here, isn't it?
Yeah, no, you can't. Yeah, and it is very simple. And I rarely get zealous in my life, but if we start talking about ice cream and anyone starts saying they know the world's best ice cream, I have to put them right, because we know the best ice cream. And I used to, my mum used to draw into the shop in Musselburgh on the way home in the summertime on a Friday so we could get a cone. And the queue with little expectant schoolboys and their parents was out the side, but you'd wait because, my God, it was worth it when you got.
It's very rare to go past and there not be a queue outside.
Yeah, no, completely.
Me and my wife, there's a little. We were in the queue once at Lucas to get ice cream, and I don't know if you can remember, but there's the shop, and then there's a little tunnel, and then you can see through the street, obviously where they have.
Yeah.
And I think on the other side of the tunnel is where essentially the factory where they're making the ice cream. It's a beautiful sunny day, and the queue was huge. And we saw this guy. We saw him walk past and take ice cream in, and then he walked back. And he looked at the queue, and the look at despair in his face when he saw how big the queue was. And he was like, oh. And it was like, you're going to be here for a while, keep it coming.
I know, but that's the thing. It just, That's such a great memory. You just sparked it off. I can taste it now.
Yeah.
Oh, and I'm far too far away from it. I can't get it. What a disaster.
Sorry.
Anyway, yeah, no. It's okay. It's been a nice memory.
Gordon, this has been absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing your time. Thank you.
Oh, listen, my pleasure. And please go to Edinburgh when you can. I know none of us can go anywhere at the moment, but I know I'm going to be going to Edinburgh very soon, as soon as I can. So
Because I've just made you want to come up and get some Lucas ice cream.
yeah, I'm not going to go to Edinburgh. I'll go straight to Musselburgh and get Lucas ice cream. But yeah, no, great.
Gordon,
Okay.
keep yourself safe. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Hopefully you enjoyed that. This new Scottish Memory series will be running every Wednesday alongside the normal regular videos on a Saturday, so I hope you will watch these as well. Please give it a like, thumbs up, leave a comment in the description, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. But keep yourself safe out there. Till next time, bye humans.